Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. On tonight, we will talk from A to Z. But before I do that, for those who are out there who normally listen to Spreaker, somehow, some way, the devil is trying his very best to cause some confusion. So I accidentally deleted the broadcast, but it is back up now. All you have to do is go back to Spreaker.com if that's how you normally listen to the Smoking Glass Hour on Monday nights and Thursday nights. It is up live on the air. I'm looking at it right now, so we are in good shape. Before we go into tonight's subject, it's very important that we talk about education to politics and inequality to social issues. But what I want to do, because on Saturday, I believe April the 9th of 2016, the school district that I represent will be up for a millage renewal. However, on the ballot, it won't say millage renewal, it will say millage continuation, which means for the last many years, I believe it's 10, if I'm not mistaken, you have been paying a certain millage. On Saturday, all you'd ask to do is vote to renew that millage so it can continue to go on. If you are under homestead exemption, you pay absolutely $0. So the question that I ask tonight is, how important is education to you in 2016? You see, because here's what I believe as a leader in my community. I personally believe that our communities can only evolve when our leaders, such as you and I, are engaged with the political community as a whole. You see, rather than ignoring the political dynamics, educational leaders such as myself would be served well, by becoming highly skilled political humans in our own particular rights. Because we need to be very aware of what's going on. Because, see, I've always believed that a leader serves the community by doing this, by distinguishing him or herself from the other humans by his or her own gift of speech and power, of moral judgment, despite certain things that go on. You see, our school leaders sometimes too often fail to speak on the social issues, the economic issues, and the political environment in which we operate in, and more importantly, in which our elected officials come from. You see, first and foremost, in my opinion, school leaders must understand the political climate, in which it exists, and to whom they are responsible to. Now, when we look at certain things, I want to stress this. First and foremost, school leaders in general, even on this broadcast, must understand the political climate in which they exist and to whom they are responsible to. So I personally am asking you to come out tomorrow night from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time at the Union Central Elementary School, where we're going to be talking about the facts. Not what you heard on the streets, not what somebody may be assuming. We're going to tell you specifically what it is if you are above homestead exemption, what you'll be paying on a yearly basis, which is going to roughly break down to a few dollars and cents. Now, the question remains is, how important is education to you? Would you rather try to educate a child on the front end rather than sticking them inside of an incarcerated building and cost anywhere between $24 $32 and $40 some odd thousand a year to house an individual in incarceration. So once again, the question remains. Hello, Deb. How you doing? Deb from Missouri. Once again, the question remains is how important is education? Now, I had told the superintendent to call in tonight, so I'm not sure if he's going to call in tonight and talk a little bit about it. If he doesn't, I just gave the information. So if you are in Caldwell Parish and you are listening to this broadcast, please tell a neighbor, tell a friend to come out tomorrow night from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. How important is your child education? Because here's the deal. If this millage does not pass, cuts will have to be made. Question is, where will those cuts come from? We're not sure. Again, it's not to try to scare you. It's only to give you the hardcore facts and the realities of what could happen versus what couldn't happen. We know that 237 people went and early voted from Saturday to Saturday. So that means that we need to have at least 238 more people to go out and vote in favor of. So if you are out there listening, tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell your family to go out and support the millage. Go to the meeting tomorrow that we will be hosting. Robert Stevenson, good Robert is out there. Robert is from Houston, Texas, Austin, Texas, rather. I believe he's a part of Tawana Cadian's campaign for Congress. Education, indeed, is for our kids. So tonight, we're going to go all over the spectrum because I want anybody that's out there to come in and join in. I know Nikki is out there. I'm going to bring her in very shortly, momentarily. I know Aaron Hopkins will be joining us in about 20 minutes. I want to say happy birthday to my good friend, my good co-host, my good colleague, Dave Lamont from Aurora, Colorado, screens from the center. Hey, Dave, if you're out there listening, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I'm not going to sing the song, but I will say happy birthday, and I hope you have a very joyous one. Now, tonight we're going to be talking from education to politics and inequality to social issues. And by that I mean we're going to talk about any issue from A to Z. So if you're out there and listening and you want to join in this conversation and talk about whatever topic you want to talk about, because there is a co-host on this line that is willing, ready, and able to talk about anything that is brought up. Miss Nikki Bedrick, how you doing tonight?
Baron, how are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm trying to make sure, Nikki, that the devil does not destroy our operation, our plan that we have going on tonight. Nikki, let's just start out with talking about simple education. Now, in the state of Nevada, how important, from where you sit and what you see, how important do you think education in 2016 is to people from the area from whence you come?
I think it's incredibly important to everyone. Nevada has some of the worst schools. I think they rank about 50th in the nation. And, I mean, the schools are terrible here. Terrible. I think a great deal, I don't know what percentage of the population of Las Vegas is Hispanic, really. Las Vegas was founded on the hotels and the service industry. So many immigrants came to Las Vegas, for those type of jobs. And the schools are just not far at all, Baron. They're bad. Mm-hmm. People move on to state to send their children to school.
Nikki, let's get a little bit more, involved. When we look at parents of today, do you feel that parents of today do they have more knowledge, or do you feel that a lot of parents are just listening to whatever it is that somebody say? They're listening to mainstream media, which their number one goal is to distort the message and divide the people. Because you'll find that when you talk to people one-on-one, everything that not everything, some of the things that they are supporting is in fact some of the things that they should not be supporting. And when you talk to them one-on-one, you find that it leads you back to this. They are listening to just anybody that's out there talking. Do you ever see that going on in Nevada?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and you know, I've said this to you, Baron, it's amazing to me how really uninformed, misinformed, ignorant, and I mean that in lack of knowing. There's some kind of like abstract sense of things without much fact behind it at all. You know, on policy issues, on education, I think there's an inertia or an indifference where people are, if it doesn't affect me, I don't care. If it doesn't affect me, I don't care. All of my children, you know, when my children were growing up, I was always active in the schools. I've been a PTA president. I've been a room mom. I've been book club mom. I could tell you, even in middle class white schools, I could tell at third grade, okay, helping, you know, being a room mom alongside with the teacher, I could tell which kids were getting support and which kids weren't. It showed in their work. I could tell from a child's work if there were problems at home, and it shows that early. It shows that early with children. I'll just give since it is education. Years and years ago, I became a PTA president, and I just moved from New York City, moved to California. My kids had gone from private school into public school, and the school was about 55% Hispanic. It was like a culture shock for me. So someone suggested to me if I needed to see what was happening in the school, I should get active. So I did. I ended up becoming the PTA president in that school. One of the things that we did in that school, it occurred to me when I was in the school, you know, there were white parents in there, help teachers, but there weren't too many Hispanic women. And one day I got to thinking, I thought, you know, these women love their kids as much as I love mine. You know, what's the problem? The problem was language. The problem was the sense of they were almost afraid to come into the schools because of the language barrier. The other was a second class kind of citizenship that they felt. They felt they weren't welcome. What we started to do was we started to give English classes to the parents. They came in a couple of times a week for that. We welcomed them in with interpreters. Before you knew it, Baron, that school was full of Hispanic moms in there helping.
Okay. Now, once again, we know that Senator Bernie Sanders is talking about certain pieces of education. Robert is out there saying, Father, I pray that you be with Baron in the smoking glass hour, that the message Baron wants to get out reaches and touches the possible of the people listening. Bless this great show in Baron in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Thanks, Robert, for that prayer. It resonates with all of us here. I know that Aaron Hopkins is out there, and I know that our caller is in from the state of Missouri. Now, before we bring those in, I know, Nikki, that education, it appears that people are afraid to talk about certain things. And we have leaders that are afraid to speak on behalf of the people, but they will speak on behalf of the lobbyists, the pharmaceutical companies, the oil industry, and so forth and so on. So when we look at, let's take Bernie, because we're going from education to politics, we're going to flip the script, we're going to go all over this thing. Okay, when we look at Bernie talking about free education, Deb is saying that Missouri itself offers the first 2 years of community college free with qualifications. It is working very well and has not been a burden on the citizens. Deb, if you don't mind, step on into the conversation. Go as deep as you'd like to go. Tell us specifically how education is matching up in the state of Missouri versus some of the other states we have here in the United States.
Well,
hello, everybody. Hi, Dad. Hi. Good to hear you, Vicki. Actually, it's, we've got some questionable school systems in Missouri, too. We have a lot of rural communities and poorer communities in our state. And in some of those communities that are challenged like that, they do offer what they call an A+ program to their students, to where they can get 2 years of college, community college, that is, for free, tuition free. And really, the requirements are not horribly strenuous. You just have to be a resident of the state. You have to make written agreement to your high school. You have to graduate with a GPA of 2.5 or higher. You have to have 95% attendance, which, that can be a challenge for some kids who have illnesses and things, but, it's not too bad. It consists of 8 days out of the year. You have to do some tutoring and mentoring, 50 hours to somebody else. And you have to maintain good citizenship and avoid use of drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a lot of students taking advantage of that. And it really eases the burden on parents and the students when they choose to go on into a public university.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is, if we can do it here, and we haven't seen any ill effects from it financially, we've only seen good outcomes. We've got, more kids going into school. My daughter is participating in this program right now, and it's a wonderful thing. If we can manage it as a state at this level, there is no reason. I just can't believe that there's not any reason that we cannot manage to do this on a national level with all public colleges and universities.
So Deb, when you see people laughing and joking and making a mockery out of Senator Sanders talking about the college, the free college to universities and community colleges, and people say, well, that's unrealistic. When you hear those types of things, as an American, as someone who has seen this work in your respective state, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it is frustrating. I try to explain it to them, and sometimes I actually get through, which is good. It's like, wait, let me tell you about this. But it's really frustrating. People have just been trained to go with the flow rather than look beyond that. And the thing is education is so vitally important right now. President Obama was trying to turn this into a white-collar country where people had these great opportunities and things. One thing that failed was nobody thought about transitioning people into those jobs with education, because you have to be educated.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned last week that I work for one of those big companies,
mm-hmm.
and what I see happen is that they hire people in at just these entry-level positions, and then when they need actual higher educated people, they go out of the country. My company does, at least. They go out of the country and they bring those people into the job,
mm-hmm.
rather than pulling from the pool here. We've got to stop that. We've got to get our people into these higher-level jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just into the white-collar jobs. That's not even counting all the blue-collar jobs that we need to bring back from overseas, period.
Right.
But, it is. It's frustrating. It's like people have to think outside the box. They have to get into that habit. And they need to go out and look at things like this. Maybe it's just they don't realize that it exists already. So
right.
I just put it out there. It's like,
right.
Do this.
Exactly. Yeah. So Aaron Hopkins, I know that you're out there and you're hailing from the state of Texas by way of Dallas. Aaron, when we look at what Deb just said from her respective state of Missouri, we see that this plan is already working for 2-year community colleges. When we look at the state of Dallas, or the state of Texas rather, by way of Dallas, how is education being facilitated there? I know that your state chose to opt out of the expansion of Medicare, Medicaid. I know that they have a high incarceration rate. So when you look at the money that's being spent in the state of Texas versus elsewhere, do you feel that education is important to somebody like a Louis Gomar or Ted Cruz or somebody like that that's coming out. They gave Wendy Davis pure hell when she was running for governor. Now you have your governor that's there who's doing everything that could be done under the sun. Aaron Hopkins, how's education being facilitated in Texas, in your opinion? I know that Aaron is out there. I'll come on to you, Rita. Not Rita, Nikki. When we look at the politics that's being played, okay, we know that once again the politics are being played with the pharmaceutical companies, the private prison industries, which we've talked about on this broadcast about Hillary Clinton, her husband Bill Clinton, part of the privatization back during his term, more people of color incarcerated under his administration. When we look at politicians of today, I think you have the Senate Majority Leader, my good friend Harry Reid. How are they specifically talking to the small man on the totem pole, Nikki? Because we've talked about this, the small man on the totem pole, their voice is never heard. How are they reacting to people like the Smoking Glass Hour or people that's affiliated with this that may go and talk to them that's not dumping in money to their campaign finance reports or whatever the case may be? How do we facilitate that, in your opinion?
I don't have any faith in politicians at that level. I just don't. I think it's a run by special interest groups. I wanted to come back to education for a minute. I was just reading two studies, Baron. Okay, and we're talking about community college, and we're talking about Bernie, talking about free education. Okay, two study came out done by Canadian, British, Finnish, and American. Okay, just let me read this because poverty is the problem. Okay, the 0 to 14 is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have a kid who's even in some way, has the possibility to apply for community college, implicit in that is he's done high school. Implicit in that is he's performed. Implicit in that is he hasn't been tardy because there's parental homes. Implicit in that he hasn't gone to school hungry. All of those things. But this 0 to 14, so this new study, Finland, okay, across the board, came number one in all kinds of testing. It's close to Denmark, all right? And what they found, by comparison, U.S. student scores remained in the middle of the pack. That's in all the kind of industrialized nations. They say the most telling difference between Finns and Americans is that when it comes to education is child poverty. Poverty is the most relevant factor in determining the outcome of a person's educational journey. In Finland, child poverty is about 5%. In the United States, it's 5 times that high. What Finland has is a universal preschool program, universal, all the kids. It starts off, it's a level playing field for all the kids. They can go to kindergarten, they can go to preschool, and so the playing field is even for all of these Finnish kids going in there. Okay, I read this is New York Times article, okay? And again, a collaborative effect between people from different countries, and they published a paper called Too Many Children Left Behind. And it traces the story of America's educational disparities across the life cycle of its children from the day they enter kindergarten to 8th grade. So 8th grade, now we're talking about those kids that may be eligible for community scholarships or funding. All right? So basically, on the day they start kindergarten, children from families of low socioeconomic status are already more than a year behind children of college graduate parents. Those disparities become more and more and more as each grade. They're already entering behind. Behind kids who are coming from middle class homes or white homes that have an income. They list factors like poor nutrition in children going into schools, attention spans, all of the problems associated with poverty that basically forbid a child from learning. The dilapidated schools. So both of these studies are really pointing. They say America doesn't have an educational crisis. It has a child poverty crisis. Mm-hmm. And that playing field needs to be leveled some kind of way, because if those 0 to 14 years are the important ones. Those are the important ones, and I think that's what needs to be addressed. I would appreciate greatly if we had free college, we had free community college, free education. But those are I think that's where our dollars need to go.
So, Nikki,
to make them eligible to even get to the next place.
So, are you suggesting that poverty is or has a major impact on the well-being of a child within his or her informative years from 0? We're going to push it up 0 to 16, 17, or 18 on throughout their senior year in school?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I believe it's the crux of the problem. Mm-hmm. You have a child, maybe there's a single parent, maybe there's not enough money coming in. The kid lives in a crime-ridden neighborhood. We're asking that child to go into class, be well-behaved, have full attention span like he has a full belly, no be concerned for his safety, and we expect that child to perform like his white counterpart who doesn't deal with those daily traumas. Absolutely, that's where it begins. Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the opposition side, some says that government should be out of the lives of people as less as possible. However, on the flip side of the coin, when there are natural disasters or whatever the case may be, those same people who are hollering government should be out are the very ones who are hollering that government should be in. So when we look at poverty, what role do you feel politicians, the government, should play without crutching this family? But what role should they play, in your opinion, with regards to helping lend that helping hand out to that brother or that sister that's down on the ground who just need a boost, not a hand out, but just a hand up?
Oh, I think unfortunately, Baron, the poverty has become almost criminal in our thinking, in our society. There's a stigma attached to poverty. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the politicians are addressing it. And then, we can talk about the jobs, as Deb just said, the jobs that go out of the country. It's not just the politics. I mean, the politicians vote for that. How can you be concerned with your constituency, with your country and its well-being, when you're really robbing the citizens of jobs? To me, our cities, our inner cities are crumbling. Our infrastructures are falling apart. The study I was reading about the children going to school in inner city schools. Fully a third of them are being taught by a novice teacher because it's not a choice position to go into a poverty-stricken neighborhood to teach. And there is nothing being done at this level whatsoever. I think we're an avaricious, greedy society. I think we're an indifferent society. But when you're supposed to be the leader of the industrial world, and you have Finland, for goodness sake, has 5% child poverty. We have 25% in this great big American dream. It's unconscionable. Mm-hmm.
So, Deb, let's take the point that Nikki just made. You indicated in your text across the live waves that Bernie is also wanting to expand, educate down to 0 to 5 also. When we look at poverty itself, Do you agree with what Nikki is saying? Would you like to add to, take away, or how do you see poverty and its negative role, if any, from your standpoint, regarding the education of a child from 0 to 16, 17, or 18? Deb?
Well, I think Nikki stated it perfectly. I mean, it's a key issue with education. I see it in this little town we have here all the time. We have a backpack buddy system here where we can donate food so these kids can go home and have something to eat on weekends and things. I mean, the community I live in is fairly poor. It's like a poorer community. And she's right. These kids can't go to school hungry and be expected to learn when they can't concentrate on anything but where their next meal is going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that some of our governments, especially some of our state and local governments, are trying to fight that also.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Missouri they still have barely what they call a Head Start program, which is educating preschool. And it's free. It's based on income. Well, now the income's so low, the income that you have to have is so low that, and with the way things are going with the middle class falling into these, there's a gap there, and something that are being missed. And to top it off, our state is trying to cut this program. This has been an integral program to get these young children started and ready for kindergarten, and they're wanting to cut it.
So Dale, what is the rationale for wanting to cut programs that we know that the earlier a child starts in school, the better their chances are of exceeding on down the path. So what is the rationale for these people who are trying to cut this? And those who are trying to cut, are the Democrats, Republicans, in the middle? Tell us, because we want to know.
It's the Republican side of the House in Missouri. We are a red state right now. We're working on getting that turned over. And it is they want to cut that they want to cut the Head Start program. They want to cut what is it? I think it's called SNAP now. Stamp funding. I mean, they're cutting into. They want to cut into all of these programs for poverty, and their thinking behind it is that if we stop giving it to everybody, then they're going to go out and find a job and get to work. Well, our economy isn't in a condition for anybody to go out and just pick up a job tomorrow. I mean, it's just not. And especially with the way they shipped all of the jobs offshore for anybody that can't afford a college education, the jobs just aren't here. We had 3 companies leave the town I live in the 5 years that I have lived here. I watched 3 of them leave. One of them went to another city because this city would not work with them. Another one went offshore, completely offshore. And then another one just, that's going bankrupt because of the economy. And then the bakery, we had a Hostess bakery here. Well, of course, we all know that Hostess went bankrupt also, and it shut that down. People in the town have no place to work now. They have to drive 20, 30 miles to work. So what they're spending in gas is, again, money that could be used on education or feeding their families or things like that. And is all it is. They're just cutting into that to save money.
And we know that anytime there is a loss of job or jobs, that can contribute to the poverty level as well. Now, today, we are hearing people requesting to discriminate against minorities and using the hate power to force specific ideologies to create generations who hate each other. Now, we've been in this country, are used to hearing that kind of stuff in third world countries who suffer from war and have a lack of education. Now, hearing this in the United States today in 2016 makes us question what's going on, because we know that the United States itself has always been an example of democracy, freedom, and justice for this world. Now, when we look at this democracy, freedom, and justice for this world, is that rapidly dwindling based on all the Trump and Trump-itises that's going on, all of the Ted Cruz and all of these things that they're saying that's out there that are basically dividing and distorting people just like it was in the 60s. Nikki, do you feel that we have an issue with what's going on with injustices and inequalities here regarding social issues in this particular country in 2016?
Oh, I think we have so many social problems. I think what Cruz and Trump are effectively doing, there's an awful lot of disaffected white folks out there who are poor, who've lost their jobs. And I think that Cruz and Trump are doing the age-old. They're scapegoating. I think they're playing to, I think Trump particularly is playing to historic racism. I think he's scapegoated the immigrant and the kind of ignorant, uneducated white is buying it all over again. That if we get rid of these problems, we'll be, great again. I think it's divisive. I think, and I think that is really, really the Republican ballgame. I mean, I've listened to Ted Cruz. There isn't one concern that Cruz has about minorities, or poverty, or the social issues that are really plaguing this country. I mean, and not only for minorities. I think, many of those at the Trump rallies are the poor, disaffected whites. And the black has always been scapegoated, and the Hispanic. And I think it's just, it's the way it's always been in America. That appeal. And I know particularly in the southern states, I live in, so I'm in Nevada. The states of Nevada, California, New Mexico, Texas, the border of Mexico. I mean, you can. Someone was saying last night, can you really imagine if these folks were supported? I mean, the economy would collapse. Sorry, white folks, no more strawberries.
Okay. Well, Nikki, you've been an immigrant, okay? And I want to ask this to Deb, and the lines are wide open, so if there's anybody out there who want to jump in, all they have to do is let us hear some sound, and we're going to pause and let you come in. This country itself was built by immigrants, diversity of all races and religions. We know that. We know that from a historical standpoint. Now in 2016, Mr. Trump is talking about cease and desist when it comes to immigrants. Ted Cruz is talking about going through neighborhoods and policing, so to speak. Diversity of races and religion all falls into this particular category. So as an immigrant, Nikki, what is that saying to you and anybody that's coming from or that would like to come from these other places over here to America? What does that sound like? Hypocrisy, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what does that sound like?
It sounds to me like if you're white, you can do it. If you're white, if you're white, kind of Anglo-Saxon Protestant, you can come here and you can assimilate. Really, your whiteness is your badge. I've got lots of friends who came from other countries, European countries here. Never a problem with immigration. I mean, you had to go through the proper kind of, channels to get your green card, to do that type of thing. Never really in opposition. But the whiteness is the badge. This isn't directed, this immigration is not directed at the white European who wants to come here, or who companies bring over to fill positions. It's not directed at that. It's directed at the brown immigrant, the Muslim, the Mexican, the South American. That's who it's directed at, and it's part of that this country was built on immigrants. And I've said it and I'm going to say it again, Baron. People who look like you were here long before the immigrants came. Did you get to assimilate? Oh.
Can I jump in here and throw something else?
Yeah, go ahead, Deb.
Can I throw something in there, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of have to question that, though. And I agree that we have a hardcore racial issue here. We do. Going back to education, I'm going to step back to that just for a second. Because I think that they keep people down and uneducated. They want them to be uneducated so that they can continue to use them as a scapegoat, period. But as far as bringing people in from offshore, the people I see being brought in from offshore are people from India. This also has to do with a money issue, a class issue. There are people from India. There are people from other cultures that are well educated in things. We have a college here. We have a university here in Missouri that used to be had a very high African American population to it, and this college has turned that around, pushed the African American students out, and brought in high affluent Indian students, like from India students, because they come from wealthy families and they can pay the money and things like that. So you're getting back into not only a racial thing, but we're crossing over into a financial issue here, and that is your corporate universities and things like that. People backing those universities and things when they should be handled. And I'm not a big government girl. I mean, I don't think they should be into all my business by any means. But I think there are certain responsibilities of educating this country that they should be handling.
Well, let me ask you this, Deb. When you say educate this country, you take Cruz followers, you take Trump followers, and you try to educate them, and they give you a blind ear, or you try to educate the 1%ers or the majority, and they give you a blind ear or a silent ear. How do you begin to make this ignorance become something that people can become aware of, but people are refusing to become aware because, in my opinion, in a high probability or high probable chance, some people want it to remain this way?
Well, and as far as the Trump or Cruz followers, some of those folks are just going to be hardcore racist. I mean, they just are. And I don't know that you could ever reach them. Mm-hmm. I think there are some that you can. But I think one of the ways that, the only way we're going to be able to do it is to lift people out of this situation that they're in. Because, as I said before, they just continue to keep, the people of color down so that they can use this as a scapegoat. And the people like the Trump followers just feed into it. So the first thing we've got to do is figure out a way to lift these people out of these situations, and not the Trump followers, but our poor populations and our people of color populations that don't have access to education, and get them out of that.
So Deb, if somebody like
can't be scapegoated anymore.
If somebody like me, or Aaron Hopkins, or anybody that look like us say what you just said, which is keeping people down. Many people holler that you're still holding on to the past. You need to let it go. Or you're just feeling pity for yourself, and you're asking me to do something for you that I didn't have anything to do with, my forefathers or my foreparents or whatever the case may be. And see, what I'm trying to do is point to how ignorant all of this stuff can end up being, because nobody that I know wants to hold on to what has happened. However, I do know people that want people to acknowledge that there was a role that was played in this country that is very uncomfortable, number one. Number two, history is being distorted. And number three, we need to have an open and honest discussion, just like we're having now, that they should have had in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and so forth and so on till now, rather than becoming too complacent reluctant to change, and it is now equaling destruction because too many people became comfortable with just the status quo, and the status quo is not working. So when we look at somebody like Senator Bernie Sanders, who is talking about a situation like this, and Robert is saying that you keep people uneducated, they won't know how to do their own research, so you can lie to them and they will believe it because they don't know better. Okay, he also says that's why red states cut education. Do you agree with that, Deb and Nikki?
Go ahead. I totally agree with that. I mean, I totally agree with that. I think racism is alive and well in America. I think it is. I think it's been well hidden, and I think Donald Trump has brought out some of the worst of it. But I think you still have it hidden in your government and within your population that are less vocal about it. And it's a sad thing. And the thing is our government, by keeping people down like they do, they keep that argument going.
Mm-hmm.
They keep it. They keep it that way. They want it that way. They want the discourse between the races and between people, because it always gives them a way out and an excuse. And then other people are the same way. You know, they don't want to look at it as, well, maybe I've done something wrong. You know, like more than me. It's like maybe I screwed up. No, I can blame it on this black guy that got this job instead of me because of diversity, the diversity laws and things like that, and such. So it's such a complicated circle.
Right.
That just feeds on each other. And until we get some politicians in there that will step up to the whole system and lift people, do something to lift people out of this, I mean, I see it getting worse. I mean, there for a while, I guess I thought it was getting better too, at one point in time. And it really isn't. I just see it getting worse.
Mm-hmm. So, Deb, when we look at, I like what you said, when you look at getting the corrupt politicians out of and putting some better people in, how do we do that when the United States Supreme Court enacted Citizens United, which says that corporations can give enormous amount of money where an individual cannot match that amount of money that's being given? So how can we get just the average Joe that's out there to understand that your voice does matter, your vote does count, and you need to get involved to make a difference in society as a whole? Because, see, the baby boomers are in fact dying out. The millennials are now coming in. So how do we make the comparison to get this thing back into the fold where people actually understand that we the people, we do matter?
Well, I think Sanders' campaign has already started that. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that he has shown people, especially by some of these close races, is that had I gotten out and voted, maybe he wouldn't have lost Nevada. And now it turns around that I heard today that he actually ended up winning Nevada because because some of the delegates didn't show up. So I think that's crucial that people see that. And then in a place like where I live, like my county, he lost the vote in my county by 5 votes. 5 votes. Mm-hmm. I bet I talked to 5 people that weren't sure about whether they were going to vote or not. So now that it's done and over, I've been going back to those people and going, look, this was a vote that counted. Yours was a vote that counted. Yours was a vote that counted. And we have to do that on a personal level. We have to do that on a local level and get our friends and our neighbors and things involved and excited about it. Mm-hmm. And we have to reach out to people that we don't know and be brave enough to get involved ourselves. I mean, this is the first time I've ever been this involved in my life. Mm-hmm. But I was inspired, and I was like, here I am talking on your radio show, and I never in my life thought I would ever talk in public like this. But it's that important.
Hey, Deb, Robert Stevenson says out in Austin, Texas, check this out now, Nikki, that He says, do their research, educate themselves, and register to vote and vote. Here's the deal. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. In 2014, in Texas, the state of Texas, 60% of registered voters did not vote. What do you think about that, Nikki?
Oh, I think it's appalling. I think it's you know how I love history. When I think of what the vote has cost people, what people did to get that vote, the way people suffered, you know, and I'm not just talking about the Voting Rights Act of '64 and the marches and what Dr. King did. I'm talking about throughout history, what people did to Ireland. The Irish Catholic didn't get the vote until 1913, 1914. They've been killed for 200. When they finally got the vote, a lot of people had died for that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that always is non-American that really kind of, I see, just an observer, is this real apathy in America. You know, I mean, it's common knowledge that the 1%ers, the 1% of the corporations that own the country, I mean, my country would have had a revolution already. You know, it's and I think that's really what Bernie's just young and they're excited and they're out there and they like the message. But I think 60% of how many people in the state of Texas? 60 million. How many? What's the population? Probably about 60 million, right?
No, I don't think it's 60 million. I know that Texas is very large.
Huge.
Yeah, very, very large. Let me see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody can. Yeah.
Yeah, Robert, if you're out there listening, can you tell us what the population of the state of Texas is and send it back to us on the live feedback? But you're right, Nikki. My thing is, you know, go ahead.
I'm just saying I'm astounded, and that is, Baron. I keep coming back to this apathy, this inertia, this indifference that really, and of course I'm not saying all America, but there is that with throughout the country. This apathy. If it doesn't affect me, I don't care. You know, it's appalling that 60% of Texas wouldn't go out and vote.
Robert says he believes 20 million in the state of Texas, and he's hailing out of Austin, Texas.
People didn't vote.
Yeah, so I believe Deb and Nikki that I saw somewhere where a country made it that you are automatically eligible to vote unless you otherwise classify yourself as being ineligible. Is that something that you think? He says 29. Belinda says, Belinda, by the way, from Croatia, she's out there list. She says 26.96 million people in 2014. That means almost 30 million people. When you do the math on that, you're looking at what? Mm-hmm. 15 million is a half.
Maybe 17. Yeah, so about 17, 18 million people did not vote. I have to, my next logical thought, it begs the question, why?
Well, now keep in mind when you get that number, that also includes children and people under voting age.
Right.
No, I agree with that, Deb. But it's still going to end up an enormous half it again, and say so. Make it 6 million, 7 million. You know, really pull it down there. It begs the question: why didn't they vote?
I think some people just felt like, in my life, my parents were not well off, but they were comfortable. They were middle class, middle class, and I think at least when I was growing up, I was out trying to figure out what I was doing and figured they knew what they were doing, which I have learned is not correct since then, because apparently they did not know what they were doing when it comes to government voting. But I think as a younger generation, kids just during the time that I grew up, I'm 53. During the time that I grew up, anyway, we just kind of figured our parents had it for us. We could go off and explore. I think that was the hippie generation. I could go out and figure out what's going on in the world. And now we're coming out of that, and what's been left for our kids because of now. I have always voted from the day I turned 18. I will say that. But I think there's a lot of people from my generation that did not vote, and they were off doing their thing, and they didn't realize how it was affecting, how it was going to affect their kids or their grandkids. And now they're starting to come around and go, oh my gosh, Of course, they're going to blame it on something else rather than themselves. I think that's a small part of it anyway.
Yeah.
And then because of that, they didn't pass it on to their kids. This is an important thing. That's why I took my daughter to vote with me at our primary. She was late for school. Like, you're coming with me. Come on, let's go. Like, I took her there, went and watched me vote. I explained how it all worked. She's involved in campaigning for Bernie Sanders as much as I am into high school now. I took her on a march on our Capitol. I have taken her to hand out flyers for Sanders. I made her get involved. She needs to know because I can't do it for her.
Yeah. Tonight we're talking about education to politics and inequality to social issues. We're looking at about 8:29 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We're joined tonight by Nikki Bedwick from Nevada, Deb from Missouri, and now we have Mr. Aaron Hopkins who's coming in by way of Dallas, Texas. Mr. Hopkins, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How's everybody tonight?
Doing fine. Aaron, I know.
Hi, Aaron.
I know that you've been out there listening, and I know that you couldn't come in. I know you've been able to dissolve some of the things that are going on, but give us your perspective from the education of politics and inequality to social issues, because we're going all over the spectrum tonight, Aaron, from A to Z. We don't have a specific desired topic, so if there's anybody, once again, that's out there who wants to talk about something that we have not talked about, they may do so. Come on in, Aaron.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Mickey mentioned earlier when we were talking about the poverty level, and when you're trying to educate people, especially young people, who their minds and their attention spans are going to be greatly affected by the environment that they're being raised. And that's not, we cannot fault them for their behavior, knowing that they're facing these types of things in what's called the lower income areas or just straight up poverty-stricken communities. So if we look at that, and we also look at the fact that many of the teachers who are faced with trying to educate our children, they're faced with some of the same, if not worse, economic restraints, because to me, I have never really felt like teachers, and I know I'm not alone with this, I've never felt like teachers have been compensated the way that they should be compensated. They should be on the same level of doctors and lawyers in this country, in my opinion, and maybe even above both. So with that being said, in Texas, we have this issue now with charter schools being fought against by many people who are in the school district who represent general public education. And in my mind, I'm looking at, let's look at and back the one that's going to produce the most worthy students. So it's not necessarily, I don't want to hear that if a child comes out of the South Lake area, which is one of the richer areas of Texas or my metroplex, they deserve the same right that a child in South Dallas or the southern sector of Dallas should get. So the quality of education shouldn't be based, even though we know it is. We've got to revisit what's being taught, and as opposed to, are they being given a chance simply because their parents may have a higher financial status in the community. So, Nikki, you hit it on the head as far as I'm concerned. If the economics of education are not addressed, then we're going to continue to have our children across this country miseducated, because the one factor for me that doesn't exist in education, even when we get to the so-called higher levels of education where you have to pay for college, we cannot eliminate the fact that we're being miseducated. So the fact that we're being taught a lot of times and then infused with white supremacy and racism, what are we really being taught?
Right. What's the real deal?
Right. So, and another thing, think about how many times during war, anytime there's a war, are the people that are being enlisted in to go and serve, are they coming out of Ivy League schools? And I know there's, for the most part, if a person is in college, then they're not necessarily going to be subject to a draft to be enlisted. But just think about that for a second. So, who's going to fight on the front lines of any war? It's normally going to be the same poor, undereducated or miseducated men and women of the country who never had a chance to do anything productive from day one. So we really got to look at this thing from all sides, Barrett, and I'm glad you chose the subject. So from the political side, and you mentioned the Ted Cruz and what's going on in Texas, and again, Nikki and Deb hit it on the head. If the lobby is stronger to speak on behalf of the corporations who, again, their interest is not even including the educational system in terms of whether it's good or bad or otherwise, it at the end of the day, it's got to be based on the generation of income for the top 1%. Okay,
Nikki, here are the facts. Robert said that in 2014, there were 14,025,441 registered voters. So you take 60% of that. You hit the nail on the head. Deb says that our schools in poor areas are falling into disarray. Look at some of those schools in Chicago that have warped floors, crumbling ceilings, fungus and mold growing. They don't even have a safe environment when they go to school, for heaven's sake. So when education is key. And when we fail to speak out on behalf of those who are not getting that quality education, then as Americans, we are falling short of making a difference. It's really no other way to look at it. Nikki, I'll bring you in, then Deb, you can come, and then Aaron, you can come back in. And if there's anybody else that's out there on the line who'd like to come in and talk, the lines are wide open. We got about 24 minutes left, so let's talk about it. Go ahead, Nikki.
Well, Byron, there's no kid anywhere that will tell you, myself included, who I grew up in the projects, who doesn't understand that education is what got them out, okay? To be able to read is to know words. To know words is to formulate ideas. To have ideas is to listen to other people's ideas. Without reading, without a child being literate, they are confined to the world that they know. There's no cognitive acumen. There's no exchange of ideas. They see nothing outside. They don't see that there's anything more. When television may show me he might be a basketball player, but what if he's 5'8"? That is not going to happen. But the world of ideas, when you open up the world of reading to a child, and I'm not even talking about math here because you have calculators, but a child cannot read. I mean, he can't even read the directions to put something together. So this idea of educating a child and opening a child to the world of ideas, the world of thinking, is paramount. I mean, and I'm going to say again, there's no one I know that ever got on the project, okay, that didn't somehow, read things, see things, and say, you know what, there's another big world out there, and Dr. Broder did her thesis paper on resilience. It takes a lot more than that. But when you deny a child the use of his mind by denying him words and denying him the ability to read, you're denying the development of a mind. So, I mean, it's and there's so much more that needs to be done. And I'm with Aaron, and I think poverty is the problem. And poverty creates a poverty of spirit. And that's, to me, that's where the problem starts. I think I read a statistic today that, here I have it right here in that same article I was reading. Only 5% of Americans aged 25 to 34 whose parents didn't finish high school have a college degree. Okay. Only 5% between the ages of 25 and 34. If their parents did not finish college, they don't. 5%. Only 5% have a college degree. It's generational. It's generational, and it has to be attacked at its roots, and its roots are poverty.
Well, Deb, if we look at the fact that this thing called poverty, some kind of think that it might be intentional. It might be a part of the institutionalization. It might be part of this modern day new Jim Crow. When we look at poverty, Deb, what is it, in your opinion, that you feel people can do in their own respected areas? Because we know when a child goes to school and have a meal in his or her stomach, they are less likely to cause disruption or be what you call problem kids in the classroom. What are some of the ideals, Deb, if you've thought about them, that you feel people on the local level can band together and join hands? Because we know all the time we see people on side of the road that are homeless. So what do you think, Deb?
Well, one thing I wanted to go back to something that Nikki was saying too about being generational.
Go ahead.
One thing I think that we need to do is set up some more parental education programs, because these parents were left behind themselves, and they can't see beyond the boundaries that they were left with. They have difficulty doing it. So that gives them, that kind of limits their ability to catapult their kids into the realm of possibilities. And now they're even losing their job. So they can't even go, well, at least you can do this. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as poverty goes in our community, there are some programs out there that people can get involved in if they just step out and do it. There's things like Big Brothers and Sisters. I don't know if that's a national organization. I know we have it here in Missouri. There's the Backpack Buddies program like we have here, where people donate food to send home with kids on weekends so that they're not hungry. There's programs out there. If there's not a program out there and we see a need, we need to set it up and make it happen. Mm-hmm. We need to start fighting back on a local level. Right. Because especially in places like Missouri, where we're a red state, they don't care. It's going to take the people doing it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that we can do. Make friends with your neighbor. Like I live in a block. The town I live in is kind of sectional, and we don't have like neighborhoods. We have like blocks. So like I live in a block, and then I have some poor community block behind me. Get involved with those people. Say hi when you go out for a walk. Get involved and make friends with them, and see if you can hook them up with opportunities. And programs like that. Mm-hmm. Or like I said, make one of your own. Step outside the box, create one of your own.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, Aaron. I want to switch the subject. We know that now. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody that's out there, the person that I heard first talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour was Bernie Sanders. Now I believe California has decided to do so. And it appears from social media that former Secretary of State, former First Lady, former Senator Hillary Clinton is basically trying to take credit for that. What do you think about that, Aaron? Give me your version of what's going on in this political scheme, Hillary versus Donald. Hillary versus Bernie, I'm sorry.
Well, that's her track record, man. And unfortunately, I'm not surprised that she was that would be a tactic of hers. But here I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing we have to realize: for California to be in favor of raising the minimum wage, even if it was $1, the extreme cost of living on both coasts, both East and West Coast, says that their minimum wage should be higher than any of the states already. So just imagine if, I'm going to give you this example. In Texas, the average home is around $45 per square foot. So that affords somebody on average to have a home around 2,300 square feet. Here, that may cost, let's say, an average of $150,000. You take that same 2,300 square feet of living space in California, and you're upwards over $1 million. So
more, Aaron, more. Yeah.
Right. You're familiar with what I'm saying, Nikki. So the minimum wage factor, based on where you live, to me is ridiculous. So that means that a person that works at the Whataburger, if they're making anywhere close or under minimum wage, what is their living reality? What are they going home to every day, and how do we expect them to be satisfied with that? And I think the president actually asked the question. Well, he didn't ask the question; he did the statement to Congress. Basically, if you think that that's realistic for what somebody should live on, you try it. Try to live on anything under than $10 an hour and see what happens.
Aaron, I read the other day that in across the board in the United States, nobody who gets minimum wage. Let me take this because it's probably not. Nobody who gets minimum wage can afford a 2-bedroom apartment. The market value of a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere is more than 2 minimum wages in one house can afford.
That's right.
So that there's no, so that this idea of affordable living at $8.50 an hour, or even $15, depending on where you live, I absolutely agree with that. And California, I moved to California because of the cost of living.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, Nikki, let me let you take care. Yeah, because you got
a week to try to just live there.
Yeah, Nikki, go ahead on, take care of that, because you got to let feedback coming from your phone. Let me ask you this, Aaron, Deb. Robert, who is a law supporter of the Democratic Party, he indicated that Hillary wants $12 an hour. Now she wants $15 an hour. And like I said, we want to be fair and balanced, not Fox News fair and balanced, but the true fair and balanced. We know now that Sanders has accepted an April the 14th debate with former Secretary of State, First Lady, and Senator Hillary Clinton. Aaron, Deb, and anybody else that's out there, what do we expect to get from this debate that we have not gotten from the previous debates? And is it really necessary, to continue to go forward? What would you like to see, Aaron? I'll start with you, then I'll go back.
What I expect to see is much more of the same of what we've already seen. I don't want to sound like I am disrespecting Mrs. Clinton. I just want to be very honest about, where she stands and what her track record says her politics are about. If she were honest, one of the first things I think would have happened before she even took the stand to run for presidency is, let me clean up some of what, may have a black eye, or if there's any, maybe fence straddling where this is what I actually meant, but this is the way it came across. Let me fix that before I even make this run. Because that hasn't happened. It's almost like she themselves out without addressing them. And to be quite honest, I don't think that not only do I know that's not going to happen, but it takes things like what you just mentioned, man. For her to respond to something, it's got to be head on first.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, that's not honest. It's not genuine. If you know certain things are happening, and that you're going to, at some point, to me, it's better to prevent things from going any further or getting worse than it is to wait till it comes across your table.
Mm-hmm. I
could be wrong, but that's what I see. So, in terms of her debate with Senator Sanders is consistent. His track record is to me is strong. So I don't think it's going to be very much debate. I also think that Hillary sees where there's a shift where she, I think, might have thought the young people were not in fact in line with Sanders, and now she sees she's lost some ground. So, debates to me I'm not a big fan of debates when there's very little facts being exchanged. You may have one person who's going to be factual, then you have another person trying to counter those facts. When you have so many of us that are uneducated voters that Mr. Trump pointed out. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying one of the things about voters that I've realized over the years is we don't do the research to find out what the real issues are that we should support or deny a candidate.
Hey, Aaron, we got another good message out here from Belinda that which is very good logic, and that's why it's important to bring all these voices in. She says that if the debate is held in New York, okay, it might help for people who don't know Bernie Sanders to get to know him. People already know Hillary, which is factual. Hillary knows that if people get to know Bernie, they like what he has to offer. So that may be one of the good benefits, I guess, for us old schoolers who follow this thing, who've already made up our minds, and you pretty much got to get your hand caught in the cookie jar before things are changed. We got about 10 minutes left in the broadcast. Nikki, give us a little summation of what we talked about tonight. And how we can continue to facilitate from the airwaves to the homes, and from the homes to the minds of the people, and from the minds of the people, hopefully we can massage them to become uninformed, to become well-informed of things that are going on in today's world, especially the 2016 presidential election.
I think this is a critical election. I think because this whoever is elected is going to kind of decide the direction the country goes in. I get very heartened by, I love that the young are supporting Bernie Sanders. I love that there's an enthusiasm about him. I think in a debate, Hillary already, even people that are uneducated, uninformed, have this sense that Hillary is devious, that she's a liar, that she's politically expedient. I don't think she's going to do well in a debate with Bernie Sanders. Like Aaron said, I think Bernie Sanders, not only his political career, but his life has been consistent. And, when you have no guile or no malice in your heart and somebody asks you something, you're speaking the truth. It's just the truth. I think the debate will not bode well for Hillary Clinton, and people that are sitting on the fence with her maybe quite turned off at that debate. But I think it's so important I think Deb had a great point earlier about making friends with your neighbors, talking to people, talking about issues, informing people, doing things in your neighborhood. I think this apathy, one day if this apathy isn't addressed and corrected, America will find itself a banana republic,
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we care, I don't quite know how to get to people that way, or people that feel, because a lot of this apathy is, well, my vote doesn't really matter. But I think what we're all talking about here is it does. Those 5 votes, Deb. Those 5 votes he lost by. And for people need to understand, I think, at all levels, that change starts with me. Change starts right in here. Whatever that change is, if we're waiting around for someone else to do it, it's not going to happen. It's that adage, become the thing you want to, become the thing that you want to see.
Right.
And I think that's all our individual responsibility to do that.
Right. We got another respondent out here, which is Robert, which is very true. For Hillary or Senator Sanders, for Bernie to get the things done that he keeps saying, if he becomes president, here's what we need to do, and we need to take note of this. We need check this out. We need to, I'm trying to get my stuff right here running. I can't get it fixed up. It says that we need to elect people in the Senate and the House. He also says that I am not convinced that Hillary was actually for $15 an hour. She is now fighting for her adopted state, which is New York. There was a prearranged meeting with Cuomo to make the $15 an hour New York announcement, and I believe it was calculated move to draw votes. Belinda says out there, I don't think Hillary is for the $15 an hour either. See, we love this type of engagement because see what this does is it creates a conversation that allows people to become involved. Aaron, if you're out there, Deb, if you're out there, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to kind of split the time and let you guys give some closing commentary before we close out. We'll start with you, Deb.
Okay, this has been a great evening. It really has. I mean, we've touched on so many things, but I really think that one of the things we need to do is educate people and help them to understand the dynamics of the situation. Because this is not this issue or that issue or other issue. It is such a dynamic, and it's complicated. And, I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. Government makes it complicated so people spin their heads and can't understand it. So as we as individuals, we need to get out there and speak more to each other and about the complications of it, about the dynamics of it. Mm-hmm. How each piece plays into the other, the poverty, the education, all of this, how it plays together, because it is a whole. It's a whole piece. And people complain about Bernie having so many different, he's spread out all over the board. Well, those pieces are the things that create the whole. Mm-hmm. And those are the things that we need to bring together and show people.
Aaron Hopkins.
Yeah, one of the things that was on my mind earlier when Nikki was speaking about the vote and what was sacrificed for the vote, one thing we have to keep in mind when we see numbers like the numbers in Texas and lack of voter turnout, whenever there's a violation of trust, the trust is not something that you easily go back and win. So a lot of people are disheartened over how many times they have heard promises given and promises broken. So it's not necessarily that people are not aware of what and how important the vote is. There just has to be somebody that understands that trust cannot continue to be violated. And I think that's one of the things that we'll see, hopefully, people turn out and not be disappointed. Mm-hmm.
Well, we got another comment saying another great show. Once again, if there's any topic that anybody would like to discuss, all they have to do is reach out. Once again, anybody that's on the line, if you got a topic or something that's going on in your neighborhood that you would like to bring to the forefront, all you have to do is just let us know. Aaron, you know how we do it. We come strictly off the cuff. Sometimes we create shows within a 30-minute time span or whatever the case may be, because, again, it does not take a rocket scientist to realize that you have a tongue, you have a voice, and you have a brain. And all you have to do is come on the airways at www.thesmokingglasshour.com, or you can come on at 773 897-6398. Deb says, before we go out, get with your county party and get involved. We need boots on the ground, door-to-door, phone banking, register voting, and educating our voter. Robert says that. Deb says, I agree. Voter suppression is one of the biggest issues that face our country now. Everyone should be able to speak out and make their voices heard. We talked about voter suppression last Thursday night, a wonderful show. We also talked about the institutionalization. Listen. Somebody else come up with another topic, and let's run with it, the next broadcast, because once again, our number one goal is to make a difference. Thanks, Nick. I hate that Dave Lamont wasn't able to be in, but we know Dave is out celebrating his birthday. So, Dave, in your absence, we miss you and hope that everything turned out well for you. Once again, Nikki Bedrick from Nevada, Aaron Hopkins from the state of Texas, Deb from the place we know as the Show Me State, Missouri. So we want to make sure that everybody is able to continue to play a role and make a difference. Robert Stevenson, if you're out there, feel free to bring Tawana Cadian on the broadcast. I know she's running for United States Congress again. Congresswoman, she hails out of the state of Texas by way of a nurse practitioner. If I'm not mistaken, she ran 2 years ago and was unsuccessful. She's putting her boots back on the ground, and she's trying to get out there again, because once again, I keep saying it over and over and over, we believe that when people talk and our voices are heard, we have the opportunity to make a difference. You've been listening to tonight's topic, education to politics and inequality to social issues. Thanks for listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on WMAD 24-hour global radio. I'm going to say good night, Aaron. Good night, Nikki. Good night, Deb. Good night, Robert, and all the rest of those listeners, Belinda, that's out there listening. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good.